Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my read-through of Umineko. Let's hop right in. The four of us cousins were shooting the breeze over all kinds of topics. After all, there were boys and girls and... boys, girls, and guys here. Both girls and guys here, plus we got people over a wide spread of ages. Adult, high school, and elementary school. All each of us had to do was talk about ourselves, and it'd be of great interest to the other three. I think I'm finally getting used to all this. I mean, Jessica and Maria, you've both grown more than I could have imagined over the past 6 years. To be honest, I was feeling a bit uncomfortable, but talking like this, I guess that on the inside, nothing's really changed since back then. Right back at you. Even after 6 years, you haven't changed a bit. Although your body's gotten gigantic, you're still a kid inside.
Ooh, I'm a kid too! I'm a kid too!
Well, you aren't gonna be a kid forever, are you, Maria? I mean, you're gonna grow from being a kid into a cute young lady, aren't you? And when that happens, you'll have to be sweet on me, alright?
Ooh, be sweet, promise, ooh.
No, Maria, you can't make that kind of promise. That's bad, bad, bad. Huh?
I promised, so be sweet on him. I keep my promises. Always keep them. Ooh.
You're a really earnest girl. Ugh. The guy you get... Holy crap, my... The guy you marry is gonna be really lucky. Don't try and smooth over that topic with the promise intact. Maria, that promise never happened. Never.
Ooh. Promise cancelled? Ooh.
I realize now it really didn't feel like a proper gathering, of course. Without Battler in the group, did it? These 6 years have been kinda lonely. That's true. We weren't able to goof off like this. Still, we did have some pretty constructive conversations, don't you think? Stuff about preparing for our future, exam taking, finding jobs. I'm sorry. Now that I'm here, it's all this stupid babbling.
I'm having fun this year. Ooh, ooh.
That's true. I agree.
This year is the most fun.
Maria's sincere words probably spoke for everyone. When Georgianiki stroked Maria's head, she giggled like a happy kitten.
Pardon me. Your meal's prepared.
A timid knocking sound, and an equally timid young woman's voice came through the door. Jessica answered brightly. Shannon, come in. You remember Battler, don't you? Jessica stood up from the bed and opened the door. There stood a servant girl who was definitely about our age.
It's been quite some time since we last met, Battler. It's nice to see you after 6 years. I'm Shannon.
Noting my presence and trembling a little, she bowed deeply. Wow. Jessica had me surprised, but Shannon, you've really shocked me just as much. You've turned into a total beauty, haven't you?
Your words are too kind.
Seriously, the food on this island must be really nutritional, huh? What are you eating? Where are you trained to get boobs that large? I mean, I'll have to feel them up a bit to see if yours or Jessica's are bigger, alright? With both hands poised and saliva dribbling out of my mouth, I closed in. For the sake of my honor and justice, I'd like to point out I don't suffer some strange disease that makes my lymph nodes itch until I scratch my neck open, which can only be prevented by rubbing breasts. It's just my Battler style of communicating. When a boy gets close to a girl like this, 9 times out of 10, they get slapped or clobbered, right? It's about their original communication technique aimed at a gag to break the ice. Well, that means if I really do get to touch them in that 1 in 10 chance, though, right? I'd never asked for that much. By now, my hands were less than a centimeter away from Shannon's chest, but the counter-strike had yet to come. She understood what was going on, and she was blushing and had her head lowered in embarrassment. But she was standing there with both hands politely joined in front of her, not even trying to resist or cover her breasts. Well, I wasn't planning on this. Please hit me, right now. At this rate, I'm seriously gonna touch them. Please! which is why I was glad that Jessica chose that time to drive her elbow into the back of my head. Oh, Jessica, thank you! What the? Why are you thanking me? What? No, seriously, that's my bad. Look, I got a little too absorbed in your hypnotic chest. No, more to the point. If someone ever gets that close to you, they've got criminal intentions. Seriously, you gotta resist.
But you're an exalted guest, Battler.
Look here, a crime's a crime if I'm a guest or not. 10 centimeters around a girl is like an air defense identification range. If someone trespasses within 2 centimeters, that's an invasion of airspace and you gotta launch a slap in the face.
I could never do such a thing. We're furniture, and...
Of course, she didn't want her breast touched, but if a guest so desired, she intended to sacrifice her own needs in an effort to accommodate them. And a girl like this needs some urgent protection. In this day and age, to think there's a dedicated and virtuous girl like this, it makes my head spin. But no. No, no, no! I come at you like this, alright? You smack me down. No, pervert! You've got to complete the joke or it doesn't work. Come on, please, it's a polite request. Smacking me in the face. Like this. Smack. Smack!
I cannot comply with that request, because I'm furniture. But I will comply with it if it's in order, because that is my duty.
Well, then I'll make it in order. From now on, if Battler tries to touch your breasts, you are to counterattack with a slap. Alright?
Yes. As you command. That's what I'll do from now on. Battler, I hope you can keep this in mind.
So, Shannon declared, while bowing elegantly to me. Her facial expression was radiant. I gave her a thumbs up signal to show her I got it. 6 years ago, you might have been mistaken for a servant's daughter who just came to lend a hand. But now you're a full-fledged adult servant. How many years has it been?
Well, I have had the pleasure of serving this household for about 10 years.
She's beep. The kanji for her name reads as Shannon. This is another far from typical name for a Japanese person. Being a kid back in those days, I had taken in her name without paying much attention. But for her to be called something that is pretty unusual given that she isn't a member of the Ushimiya family. Maybe it's like a servant's professional name or something. If so, I can kind of understand why that Kanin-kun's name sounded the way it does too. She's a long-term servant who's served here since she was 6. Since her body changed radically, she didn't match my memories, but we used to know each other 6 years ago. Looked like she was just as shy as she'd been in the past, but I got the sense she'd become imbued with a charm befitting her age. Especially her boobs. That kid we met earlier, Kanin, it's her little brother.
He's not exactly my little brother. Still, he loves me like a big sister. He didn't cause you any trouble, did he?
He's the same as always. It's such a shame he doesn't act like a bit more sociable.
It seems Kanin has caused trouble. I apologize.
You didn't cause any trouble. As a fellow man, I get how moody you are at that age. It's no surprise he's unsociable.
Ooh, I get called that all the time. Get called unsociable. Like Kanin. Ooh. Maria, you're not unsociable at all. Ooh, it was nice to be like him. Ooh.
You said the meal was ready, right?
Yes. My apologies. The preparations for your meals have been carried out, so I shall be guiding you to the mansion.
Shannon bowed again formally and returned to her duty mode. We realized if we made her stick around for any more light conversation, it would actually make it harder for her to do her job, so we got up off our butts to avoid interfering with her work any further.
Shall we go to the mansion then? You're all probably starting to get hungry as well, right?
Sure am. I always look forward to meals when go to cooking here. That guy, it looks like he was a chef at some famous hotel, so he's super good at it. Oh, really? I'm looking forward to that. Let's go, Maria. We're gonna stuff ourselves like pigs.
Ooh, stuff ourselves like pigs. No. You can't take everything Battler says seriously, alright? Because it's jokes. All jokes. Come on, let's go.
Under Shannon's guidance, we headed towards the mansion. Met once again by the magnificent Rose Garden, we continued onwards as it came into view, the imposing mansion of the Ushimiya family. It had apparently been built shortly after the war, so you could feel the dignity of almost a half-century hanging about it. On the surface, the building was gorgeous, but being as old as it was, it seemingly lacked in modern amenities like air conditioning. According to Jessica, midwinter was especially tough, what with the drafts. Well, it's not like they couldn't just take the kotatsus out. As we entered the entrance hall, an aged servant greeted us. Now him I remembered. As the most senior member of the staff, Genji-san served as the head of servants. Badla-sama, we have not met in a long while. As our eyes met, he saluted us with a composed voice. He didn't give quite as refined a bow as Go does, but it was a bow that had feeling, even though it wasn't polished to the same degree.
Genji, it's been ages. You look well.
Thank you. I have been quite well. And you, Badna-sama, I see have become a splendid young man yourself. I would even say you have grown to somewhat resemble the master during his youth.
I'm looking like Grandpa. I guess that means Grandfather was pretty popular when he was young.
From here on, I shall take Shannon's place and accompany you. Please come this way.
Shannon bowed and saw us off. Leaving the entrance hall, we headed to the dining hall under Genji's guidance. Genji, like Kumasawa, stood in stark contrast to us young people, who had grown beyond recognition over the last 6 years. His figure was the same in my memories of him 6 years ago. Seems like time had stopped since we last met. Genji was a silent and diligent person. He was like Grandfather's close aide or a caregiver. In fact, you could even go so far as to say he was Grandfather's right-hand man. Actually, it seems he was by Grandfather's side more than my late grandma was. According to Jessica, Grandfather trusts him more than any of his blood relatives. But I wonder how long he served. I've never asked for details, but I think I heard he's been here since the beginning, when the mansion was constructed. That's to say, he's dedicating half his life to serving here. No wonder Grandfather trusts him. As we cut through the open ceiling hall behind Genji, I found something I had no memory of from 6 years ago. It was an awfully big portrait hung right in front of the stairs that rose to the second floor. Without thinking, I stopped walking under its spell. Since I had suddenly stopped, Maria, who was following behind me, ran into my back.
Ooh?
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Jessica. Did that picture used to be there?
I pointed at the large and conspicuous portrait hanging in the hall. Everyone else stopped too.
All right. When you last came here, that hadn't been hung up yet, had it? When was it again?
I think, if memory doesn't fail me, it was around the year before last.
You are correct. In April of the year before last, the master had this painting put on display, which he had instructed an artist to paint for him some time prior.
Grandfather did that, so he went out of his way to have it drawn. The portrait depicted a woman in an elegant dress, who gave off a sense of refinement and who seemed to suit the Western style of the mansion. I couldn't have guessed the age, but the sharpness and obvious strength in her eyes gave me the impression of youth. It was a different feeling than the composed mood of a middle-aged woman that is often in a famous picture. If this woman had normal black hair, I might have thought it was a portrait of my long-deceased grandmother in her prime. But the woman in the portrait had beautiful golden hair. It didn't look Japanese at all. So, who is she? This woman? As though trying to show off her knowledge, Maria answered that simple question with authority.
Ooh, I know. Beatrice.
What?
Beatrice. She's the witch. Didn't you ever hear about her long ago?
The witch? Oh, the witch of this island? I think I said this, but Rokunjima is a small island that's only about 10 kilometers around. However, considering that only the Ushimiya family lives here, that's quite large. So, only a harbor and the site around the mansion were set up to be lived in. Beyond that, the island remained as untouched as it was when it was still uninhabited. To understand how dangerous a vast empty forest with no lamp light, phones, or people passing through it at all actually is, you need to shift your urban assumptions a bit. You see, if by any chance you fell into a hole in the depths of the forest and sprained your ankle, cry or scream, no one would come and save you. If it then got dark, the forest, where there are no streetlights, would become enshrouded in complete darkness. Also, since there obviously aren't any guideposts here, it's easy to lose one's sense of direction and get lost in the dark forest. Nowadays, most people see a forest as a peaceful place. But to the people of bygone eras, before the light of civilization drove out the night, forests were like oceans on land, geographically separating one culture from another. Just as fishermen who go out in the ocean occasionally have their lives put in danger despite their technical knowledge. Technical knowledge was also demanded of hunters who went into the forest, and their lives were occasionally put in danger just the same. If a child were to go play in a dangerous forest, something terrible might happen. Some parents must have thought of that. Maybe my grandmother, or possibly the man himself, my grandfather, might have said it. Or maybe it was a story handed down on this island from long, long ago. There's a terrible witch in the forest, so you mustn't go in. Thus Rokunjima's ghost story was born. That's the legend of the Witch of Rokunjima. So, when we say Witch of the Island, we're referring to the master of that vast and savage forest. Which reminds me, when I was little and stayed at the mansion during the eerie nights when the wind and rain struck the windows, stories like the Witch of the Forest is roaming around searching for a sacrifice would scare the heck out of me. Beatrice, huh? As I searched my memory, prompted by Aniki, I did vaguely remember being told that was her name when I was very small. Right. Still, I completely forgot about the witch from that legend. And that she had an elegant name like Beatrice. God damn. Don't tell me grandfather went out of his way to have her depicted in this painting just because his grandchildren refused to believe him. It's the witch from grandfather's delusions. Ever since he had this picture hung up, he's been losing the distinction between fantasy and reality. To us, it's no more than the witch from his imagination, but to grandfather, she's a being who exists on the island. Exists. That's why he says he had the picture painted, so we'd understand. Creeps the hell out of me, though. My lady, to the master, this is an important portrait. I must request strongly that you not say such a thing in front of him. I know that. You couldn't get me to say it even if you begged me. Jessica turned away after glaring a second at the portrait. Let's go. We're making everyone wait in the dining hall.
Ooh, hungry.
Only a small portion of the island is controlled by the Ushimiya family. If all the wild remainder was the witch Beatrice's domain, then one could say she was a being who actually ruled over Rokunjima. That unsettling feeling I had felt on that boat trip when I learned that the shrine had been struck by lightning revived within me a bit. At the time, Kumasawa had tried to tell an ominous story about Rogenjima and been stopped by Jessica. I didn't know what she tried to tell us about the island. But there was one thing that I did know. Rogenjima's ruler was not the Ushimiya family. It was that witch, Beatrice. Yes, because this was the witch's island.
Battler! Ooh, slow!
When I looked around, everyone was already headed to the dining hall. Oops. I hurriedly chased after them. We walked up to the huge double doors that led into the dining hall. Genji knocked.
I have brought the children. If you will excuse me.
The door was open and we were invited inside. The dining hall, which screamed filthy rich, featured a super long table, which was obviously designed with no other purpose than to make the guests conscious of their rank. And our parents were already seated in accordance with that ordering.
You're late, brats. Hurry up and take your seats.
The old bastard pressed us to sit. Only the places where we would sit were empty at the long table, which only made us feel our tardiness all the more. The seat at the head of the table, which you might call the seat of honor, was for the most highly ranked and reserved for grandfather. It was still empty. He was probably planning to come in last to make himself look important. The seating order, as you faced the seat of honor, went from left to right in rows of 2, with the ranking being lower the further you were from it. So on the left-hand side of the row closest to the seat of honor was the second-ranked seat, belonging to the eldest of the adult siblings, Uncle Kraus. Looked like he hadn't arrived yet either, so that seat was empty. Opposite of him, on the right-hand side of the first row, sat the eldest daughter of the family, Auntie Eva, ranked at number 3. The left-hand side of the second row was for number 4. There sat the old bastard Rudolph, as the third of the siblings. Opposite him sat number 5, the youngest sibling, Auntie Rosa. Going like this, you might think the next ones to come would be the husbands and wives, but yes again, because the left-hand seat in the following third row, meaning rank number 6, was Jessica's seat. Opposite her was George Aniki. Then, the seat next to Jessica was me, and opposite me was Maria. And next to me, on the left-hand side of the 5th row, all the way down at number 10, finally came Aunt Natsuki. Opposite her was Uncle Hideyoshi. And next to Aunt Natsuki, in the 6th and final row on the left-hand side, was Kyrie. The seat opposite to Kyrie had been laid out like the others, but was empty. According to the ranking system, that spot was the seat where Auntie Rosa's husband would be sitting. He hasn't come, as far as I know, yet the table has been laid for a seat. These kinds of ranking orders usually permit the spouse a corresponding status, but the Ushimiya family had an original kind of ranking. Maybe it's a leftover of male chauvinism. Under the notion that the mother's womb is only a temporary house for the child and she contributes no genes, the children of direct descent would have the highest ranking, followed by the grandkids. Meaning that the spouses with no blood ties would be considered the last in line. It's terrible, but according to that ranking order, grandmother, if she was still alive, would be in a position even lower than mine. In youth, obey their father. After marriage, their husband. After aging, their children. A leftover of the times when they used to say, women, no home in 3 worlds. Long ago, when I was still incapable of figuring all this out, I thought it was so great we could all chat with our adult siblings, sitting in their groups, and us cousins in ours. However, now that I can re-examine the seating order after growing up a bit, it stirs some very complicated feelings in me. I'm Natsuki, married to the eldest son of the family, responsible for managing the household, and number 2 for all practical intents and purposes. Sat to my right, which meant she was 2 steps lower than me in ranking order. It's difficult to guess what was going through her head. That's why I made a small apologetic gesture before sitting down.
How nice to see you, Battler. You've grown quite tall, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Normal life, you know. Food, meals, eating, and then suddenly I was this tall.
Boys do grow fast, don't they? How tall are you?
About 180 centimeters? No, wait. You missed your moment. You're supposed to jump in with, do you do anything besides eat?
What? Oh, I'm sorry.
After a moment, she gave a small laugh, but it seemed she couldn't quite figure out what she was supposed to be laughing at. This woman is Aunt Nazi. She's the wife of the eldest son of the family, meaning that she's my dad's older brother's wife. Is it easier just to call her Jessica's mother? It feels bad to say it like this, but, well, not that I hated her, but I didn't particularly like her. She never got into our kid circle, and my only impression of her was as someone who always talked about complicated stuff with my parents while having a crabby expression on her face. The fact is, having barely ever exchanged words, I hesitated a lot even just now about how to approach her. And it was pretty much a flop. The silverware had been tidily set up on the table, but the meal itself hadn't been brought in. As a rule, the meal doesn't start until the man at the head of the table has taken his seat. So, as long as grandfather, the highest ranked, didn't come, lunch would be indefinitely on hold. Not even the appetizers would come. In other words, the silence in the dining hall was the sound of our parents as they withstood their hunger and waited, on tenterhooks, for grandfather to come. Except the grandfather I remembered always showed up at the right time when we ate together like this. He would never have been late to make everyone else wait for him. Grandfather's pretty late. As far as I remember, he was always strict about staying on time. Well, maybe 6 years ago. Now, not so much. Seriously, he's off in his own little world now. He doesn't even show up at family meals. I figured he'd at least stick around for today's meal, though. That said, if he doesn't turn up, I'll be a hell of a lot more relaxed and happier to boot.
Jessica?
After being scolded by her mother, Jessica faced the other way, sticking her tongue out. No way around it. Nothing to do but wait for the host to arrive. When I glanced at the clock, I saw it was almost 20 minutes past 12. The aged master of the Ushimiya head house, Ushimiya Kinzo. He was there in his study. The clock showed noon, but he didn't even attempt to get up. With reading glasses on his face, he stacked up old-fashioned books with elaborately designed bindings, one on top of another beside him, immersing himself in their reading. It definitely didn't look like it was for his leisure. On the contrary, he exuded impatience, crisis, as though every minute, every second were precious. The sealed room was dense with dancing dust particles, and the air stagnated with a mix of smells of various elixirs, each giving off its own suspicious stench. They were somehow sweet and heavy. For anyone with a good nose, the first thing they'd do after entering would be to open a window and ventilate the room. The knocking against the study door had been going on for some time. A voice calling father sometimes mingled with the knocks. As Kinzo heaved a deep sigh, he snapped shut the old book that he held in his hands and slammed it onto the table. Then he yelled at Krause, who was continuing to knock on the door. "Silence! Will you not stop that noise, fool? Who taught you that doors shall be opened to you if you but knock? They crucified the fool. Do you wish the same upon yourself?" "Father, today is the day of the family conference. It comes just once a year. Everyone is gathered downstairs. Please come out." Krause called out to his father through the door. Kinzo always shuts himself off in the study and hated letting even his family into the room. For that reason, Krause had no choice but to call out thus from the corridor. "Molest me not, everyone. Who is everyone? You refer to the fools trying to drag me out of here? Then kill them all. Chop them up, make them into firewood, feed them to the witch's hearth. Put a pot on that hearth and boil wormwood. And if there still remain imbeciles foolish enough to try and dare lure me out of here, force them to drink the broth of the apocalypse. Preserve the remainder in liquor. Oh, Genji, where are you? Call for Genji! Have my demonic absinthe prepared. The whispering of the green fairy reaches me no longer. Where is Genji? Call for Genji!
Before the door, Krause, Nanjo, and Genji kept waiting for the master of the house, who would not come out. Looks like he hates me to his very core. My voice doesn't reach him anymore. Krause shrugged as though saying it's no use, and smiled bitterly. He himself hadn't believed for a moment that his father would answer his calls. However, as it was the duty of the eldest son, he had formally made the request.
Kinzo, your sons, daughters, your grandchildren have come to see you, you know. How about you show your face, just a little?
Shut up! Be silent! You dare admonish me, Nanjo. I did not call for you, I said to call for Genji. Now hurry, call for him this instant. Time is short. The apostles are already readying their trumpets. Why do you not understand this, you foolish sheep?
Kinzo slammed the old heavy book on the table over and over. The racket obviously indicated his highest displeasure. Kinzo put his spectacles down and flew up from his chair. He spread his arms wide as if to sing to a packed opera house, as if appealing to someone, and yelled,
Why? Why is there always something in my way? I would throw it all away. I would offer up everything, and there's only one thing I ask for in repayment. Oh, Beatrice, if I could just see you smile but one more time, I would plunder the smiles of the earth. I would offer them all up to you. Oh, commanders of locust legions, reap the smiles of the earth. All is filthy. All is irksome. Why must I suffer this impediment on this most precious of days? Call for Genji!
I have no idea what he's yelling. I guess he's finally gone nuts.
Krause, isn't that a bit harsh? He's your birth father.
My dad is already dead. All that's here is a phantom of what he once was. At any rate, as long as he lacks the will to leave the room, there is nothing that we can do.
Kinzo.
Choking coughs continue to pour from the study. I'm going back downstairs. It would be a waste to let that lunch Goda is so proud of get any colder. It is one of the few things the others have looked forward to here. Krause spun on his heels. He looked at his wristwatch, mumbling and acting as though he had wasted his time doing something he knew would be in vain. Genji, father is calling for you. Keep him company. Certainly. Dr. Nanjo, let us go eat. If we stay here any longer, even our sense of taste will go insane from the sweet smell. Without waiting for Nanjo, Krause went downstairs. Genji urged Nanjo to go and eat. Nanjo looked first to Krause's back as he disappeared down the stairs, then to the study door, and let out a deep sigh.
Sorry, Genji. Please.
Please leave it to me.
If possible, don't give him any alcohol. It's too powerful a habit.
Is Genji not here yet? Who dares keep him from coming? Oh, where's Genji? Call for Genji!
Now please, leave it to me.
I'm sorry.
Nanjo gave a small duck of his head and descended the stairs. Genji saw him off and knocked at the study door. My lord, it is Genji.
Genji! Why must you make me wait so long? There is no one left there I trust.
Yes, I am alone. Kinzo returned to his seat in the study and pressed an old-fashioned switch on the table. After a small delay, the heavy sound of the door unlocking could be heard. Kinzo believed that his family might try and break into his study. Perhaps someone once opened the window for some air and scattered some important documents, and had made him extremely upset. Now Kinzo had a place had placed a secure lock in this room, making it so that without his permission no one could enter, and locking himself in the dungeon that he himself had created. Genji, who he trusted most, was relatively free to enter the room, but even that was not absolute. If Kinzo was in a bad mood, even he would not be able to enter. Anyone else would be limited to holding a conversation through the door, not even seeing his face. Most of the time, they wouldn't even get a real conversation. However, that didn't pose any particular problem for the family. That was because they had no reason to go out of their way to interfere with the retirement of the cantankerous and aged head. The fact that he was completely immersed in his odd research and always locked up in his hideaway was something of a benefit. They made the most of his refusal to leave the study, entrusting him to the hands of the servants, while they themselves kept their distance.
Genji, my usual. I'm busy.
Yes.
Genji headed to the corner of his study. There, suspicious-looking bottles boasting venomous colors were on display. They were actually liquor, but considering that they were placed in this shady-looking room, you could almost suspect they might be ghastly poisons. The inside of the study was filled with a mountainous library of outlandish books that Kinzo had amassed. There were bizarre old books, some banned, and each and every one of them either forbidden, cursed, or sealed. Of course, if one were to actually call them books, Kinzo would fly into a rage and say something like this.
Call them grimoires.
There were candles which had melted into a suspicious-looking fashion, and taken on peculiar forms and all manner of other strange objects, probably having something to do with black magic. The constellations covering the celestial globe would have caused anyone who knew the night sky well to raise their eyebrows. The illustrations inscribed in old books haphazardly left open range from the religious and mystical to the demonic and grotesque, as well as bizarre diagrams for various magic circles, and above all, the sweet poisonous smell that filled the room, which those who entered for the first time would surely, would surely be a profound assault on their sense of sight, smell, and all their other senses, making them lose their grip on reality. Inside that study, Genji, with his well-trained hand, prepared Kinzo's usual drink. If you didn't know that the ghastly dark green liquid that completely filled the complexly designed bottle was liquor, you certainly wouldn't want to put it into your mouth. He poured a small quantity of the spirit into the glass, placed a cube of sugar in a strangely shaped spoon, and then poured water from a pitcher over it. Strangely, when the colorless water was poured in, the dark green liquid turned a cloudy white. It created the strange visual illusion that the water had caused a chemical reaction, which made it all the more difficult to perceive the concoction as a liquor. To this he added an original flavoring that Kinzo liked and fine-tuned the taste. There was no recipe. Its success was measured only by Kinzo's mood swing when he drank it, and he had learned how to make it only after many decades. Genji placed the glass on a tray and made his way over to Kinzo. Kinzo was now gazing out of the window.
As you asked, my lord.
Thank you. Kinzo had regained his composure, so much so that he was now unrecognizable as the man who had been shouting, screaming, and yelling just moments before. In that man's back dwelt a dignity and intelligence made plain simply by how he tilted his glass and gazed down at the scenery beyond the window. Genji, in order to allow Kinzo to set down his glass at any time, motionlessly waited behind him and to his left, as though a living sideboard. As he did, Kinzo sucked out just the glass, his gaze still directed at the world outside the window. There was just a mouthful remaining. It was not a gesture intended to set it upon the tray as Genji expected, but a motion to hand the glass over to him.
Drink it, my friend. That is more than I deserve.
No need for ceremony between us. Drink it, friend. Thank you. Genji respectfully received the glass and inclined it a bit to taste its contents. Then he downed it in one gulp. I attempted to imitate your concoction, but no matter how I try, I cannot replicate the taste. The way you make it is pure relish. Thank you very much. It is the fruit of your guidance, my lord. Kinzo smiled at his loyal subject, who refused to put aside rank even when asked. However, he was not making fun of him. It was relaxed like a smile at a close friend's unriddable bad habit. We've grown old, you and I. I forgot my age a long time ago. That I was permitted to live the life I have until today has all been thanks to you, my lord. Kinzo gave a thin smile, as if to say he didn't need compliments. You've served me exceedingly well these years. My sons call me eccentric. The servants that were once many, all of them, retired in their growing fear of me. Only you even now serve me. That is more than I deserve. I doubt I have much time left to live. My sons are vultures, lazily waiting for my inheritance to fall into their hands. The fool Krau squanders money like water, throws away 2 gold coins to obtain 1. With that, he deludes himself into saying he earned money. Ava's a slave to money, thinking of me as a hen or whatnot. As if when I die, she'll use my carcass to make a broth. That dunce Rudolph just wants to fool around with women. Rosa bore the baby of a no one. Jessica is incompetent and illiterate. George has none of what it takes to be a man. Bradley's a fool who threw away the honor of the Ushimir family. And Mari is obscene to the eye. Why is the Ushimir blood so incompetent? Is there anyone worthy to inherit the glory I built? Of course I know. This is Beatrice's curse, I know it. Oh, Golden Witch, is this supposed to be your revenge against me? Hate me if you wish. Run away if you wish. I won't let you go. 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 You're mine. You cannot be anywhere but in my arms. You are my entire life. You'll continue to whisper for all eternity in my birdcage to me. Only to me. Beatrice. Why won't you give me back your smile? Oh, Beatrice! Oh. After howling, Kinzo choked once again. Genji set the tray and the glass down and patted his master's back. Genji's facial expression did not change. It was always like this. Thank you, my friend. After his most arranged outburst of the past few minutes settled down, Kinzo regained his composure once more. The way his attitude changed was like seeing 2 different people. A wild Kinzo and a composed Kinzo living together in the same body. And so, I've decided. I cannot stand spending this insipid remainder of my life procrastinating like this. If I have any final coins left to gamble, then I choose to abandon them all to the whim of the demon's roulette. The power of magic is always determined by the risk staked upon it. Like visiting a shrine at the hour of the ox in ancient Japanese sorcery to nail a cursed doll to a tree. The magic power dwells in incurring the risk that it will be seen before 7 days pass. The more dangerous the risk, the stronger the magic power will be. All the various miracles that appear in myth can be called crystals of astonishing magic power, obtained through miraculously low probabilities and astronomical risk. That Moses parted the sea was no miracle of God's. It was that utterly desperate risk, weighed upon the scales of oppression, of being cornered by soldiers of the Red Sea shores, which gave birth to miraculous magic power. Even if the same thing occurred again, on the same scope, the sea would, no doubt, not part. That is because Moses managed to spectacularly draw out the single miracle that carved the roulette of those in power, which has more pockets than a Sogi and Nayuta multiplied together.
The power to triumph over astronomical odds. Yes, magical power is, in other words, having the luck to grasp miracles. To obtain great magical power, one must bear the risk that is hopelessly great. Those who possess no magic would call it not a bet, but pure desperation. However, those who truly do possess magical power can grasp hold of that miracle and make the enigma come into being. And if that power exists within me, I will seize that miracle. I will be able to make the wish I devoted my life towards become true. Kinzo looked up at the sky outside the window. He spread his arms as if appealing to someone up in the skies. And if I were to have what it takes to obtain that miracle, oh, Beatrice, show your lovely smile to me once more. No matter how much time passes, your face does not vanish. I just want to see your smile. That is all. I'll return everything you granted me. I'll return all the glory I've gained since that day. I don't need fortune, prestige, gold. I'll return everything you gave me. I just want to see your smile. I beg of you, Beatrice. Oh!
His nonsensical yells segged into a scream, then into a wail. Kinzo crumpled onto the floor and clawed at it with both hands. Genji had no choice but to wordlessly watch over his master's lament.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hear that family is not in his best shape. He considers it a great shame that he will not be able to partake of lunch with you all, you having assembled especially for this long-awaited yearly meeting. Goda, let the lunch begin.
Certainly. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, we shall begin today's lunch.
Dr. Nancho, is father's condition that bad? Surely he could have at least shown his face.
Rather than his physical condition, it's his mood. And for that, there is no medicine I can prescribe.
Come on, for God's sake, mood again. We come here to hear how he's doing, making time in our schedules for this damn busy season of autumn. Let's just... Then, you got what you wanted, Rudolph. You managed to hear how he's doing. Or do you want to take my place and try and persuade our ill-humored father to come join us? You kidding?
Rudolph shrugged. Apparently, even though Rudolph seemed to resent the way his father did whatever he pleased, he'd rather avoid seeing his face if he could help it.
Does it seem like his mood will improve before dinner? Krasny-san?
I've no idea. You can try and ask him directly. Although, I do think his mood will improve faster if we don't bother him. The only one who can bring grandfather's temper under control is Genji. Pretty damn pathetic when you have a servant, have to have a servant deal with your own parents' bad mood. Jessica, do not speak out of turn.
She planned for her complaint to be heard only by her cousins, but it had reached even Krause's ears. Scolded, Jessica howled and turned away sulking. Scowled, sorry. His condition can't be that bad, can it? That kind of temper? I mean, if they're saying he's not feeling well, that might be one thing, but if his mood's that bad, at least it's proof he's got some fight in him.
Well, grandfather does have especially strong willpower. But it doesn't mean that his body will always follow that. Since last year, they keep saying he has 3 months left to live. If the initial diagnosis was correct, grandfather has been prolonging his life by willpower alone. We have to be concerned for him.
Lunch started with the family had seats still empty. The man who should have been sitting there was already old, and the brilliant glory which had rebuilt the Ushimiya family in a single lifetime was slowly being forgotten. No one seemed to feel uncomfortable when the meal began with the seats still empty. You know? Alright, that's another chapter down. I think next one we'll be able to dig into some more meaty content, but we've gotten a good foundation at the very least. So, thank you all for joining me. Next time we will read Dining Hall.